An ordinary task like signing a contract can unexpectedly lead to a maze of outcomes and pressure. Deadlines loom, data remains inadequate, and the future starts to resemble a game of chance. The larger issue is viewing uncertainty as a haze rather than something that can be quantified and analysed. When we separate odds from consequences, decisions are no longer swayed by emotions. They follow a logical structure. Vague uncertainty breeds fear, which can push individuals towards procrastination, avoidance, or rash commitments. Over time, this cycle results in repeated surprises, as those surprises were never accounted for in the original plan. Imagine a team that establishes a budget based on a singular forecast and never revisits how often such forecasts fall short. Minor discrepancies accumulate, causing the team to end up in a constant state of chaos instead of making thoughtful adjustments. These concepts provide a practical framework to assess uncertainty, compare choices, and make informed decisions even with incomplete information. This video draws inspiration from Against the Gods by Peter Bernstein, so don't forget to subscribe for more practical decision-making insights. Risk isn't solely about danger, it also encompasses situations where outcomes vary and choices become available. The crucial step is to define potential outcomes and assign reasonable probabilities and consequences to each one. Without this framework, the future seems predetermined and planning turns into mere wishful thinking. When armed with this structure, planning transforms into a comparison of different options, even in the face of uncertainty. In the past, future events were seen as messages from forces beyond human influence. As measurement techniques improved, we began to discuss uncertainty in quantifiable terms rather than through omens or gut feelings. In one area, clear records, repeated experiences, and basic arithmetic allowed us to evaluate losses and survival rates effectively. In another area, reliance on isolated anecdotes led to inflated confidence, while the true uncertainty remained concealed. This methodology focuses our attention on what can be controlled, such as the size of exposure, protective measures, and response plans. A straightforward next move is to itemize outcomes, assign rough probabilities, and revise the list as new evidence emerges. Probability turns repeated uncertainty into ratios that can be readily compared across diverse options and bets. It functions by counting outcomes, monitoring frequencies, and converting those frequencies into odds for future scenarios. This is critical because fair prices, equitable games, and sensible forecasts all rely on consistent odds. When odds are inconsistent, people often confuse luck with skill and misinterpret streaks as stable patterns. A gambler observing dice realized that his intuition was flawed, even though his reasoning felt sound. He consulted mathematicians to understand why certain bets yielded consistent returns, while others resulted in prolonged losses. From such inquiries emerged rules for counting possibilities and allocating value across uncertain outcomes. These rules enabled us to effectively price a wager, insure a shipment, or assess a gamble based on rational thought rather than superstition. This mindset connects uncertainty with action, as actions can be proportional to likelihood. A practical next step is to distinguish between what is random and what can be controlled, allowing decisions to be grounded in reliable rates. Two choices may present the same odds, yet they can feel vastly different, especially when one outcome carries a significant risk of loss. The quality of decisions improves when we assess not just the probability of winning or losing, but also the potential impact of the stakes involved. This is crucial because even a small chance of a catastrophic loss can overshadow a well-laid plan, regardless of how infrequently it might happen. Likewise, the appeal of a high probability gain diminishes if the potential benefit is too insignificant to matter. A well-known paradox illustrates how a tiny possibility of massive rewards can mislead people into irrational valuations. The key takeaway is that value is defined by the effect an outcome has on our lives, not merely by the result itself. Different households have varying thresholds for risk acceptance, as their financial reserves, obligations, and recovery options differ. A strategy that makes sense for one individual may seem reckless for another, even when the probabilities are the same. One effective approach is to establish a loss limit and to dismiss options that exceed this limit, regardless of attractive potential returns. If this framework clarifies challenging trade-offs for you, consider subscribing to continue enhancing your understanding of risk management. Statistics transform chaotic variations into valuable summaries, starting with measures like averages and the variability around them. This process involves gathering numerous observations and illustrating how far typical outcomes deviate from the average. This understanding is vital because minor errors tend to cancel each other out, while systematic errors can distort decision-making. When we quantify variation, our forecast can include ranges, allowing plans to better accommodate common discrepancies. In numerous natural and societal phenomena, data typically clusters around the average, but tapers off towards the extremes. This distribution is often represented by the normal curve, which connects the spread of data to the probabilities of deviation from the mean. This method holds true only if the observations are reasonably similar and not simply duplicates of a single event. If interdependence creeps in, the perceived sample size decreases, leading to misleading confidence in outcomes. A mindful next step is to track results over time, comparing actual data ranges to those anticipated in your plans. As time unfolds, adjusting your assumptions based on measured discrepancies makes uncertainty more understandable and manageable. Insurance operates by aggregating similar risks, allowing individual losses to become more predictable on a collective level. This predictability arises from the law of large numbers, where averages stabilize as the size of the group increases. This principle significantly influences outcomes because it converts rare disasters into expected costs that can be budgeted for and sustained. Without sufficiently large pools, a single claim can deplete reserves, rendering protection either unavailable or unstable. A parallel concept in investing is diversification, which mitigates risk by spreading exposure across various assets and income streams. By broadening exposure, you lower the likelihood that one adverse event will derail your entire plan. In today's financial landscape, formal models analyze the balance between expected return and risk, advocating for diversified portfolios. The aim is not to erase uncertainty, but to shape it into an acceptable range that can be managed and financed. A practical next step is to pinpoint concentrated risks and then introduce offsets, buffers, or protections to prevent a single shock from overwhelming the system. Over time, integrating pooling, diversification, and clear limits allows us to turn risk into something manageable. While uncertainty will always exist, risk becomes manageable when it is framed in terms of choices, odds, and potential outcomes. This approach replaces myths and overconfidence with a process that can be tested and refined. Probability provides a framework for comparing risks, while grounded thinking keeps decisions tied to real consequences. Statistics give a clear picture of variability, helping plans to account for a range of potential outcomes rather than just single-point forecasts. Pooling through insurance transforms individual catastrophes into predictable group costs that can be adequately funded. Diversification dilutes risk, ensuring that a single shock is less likely to disrupt the entire strategy. These strategies may not predict every unexpected event, but they diminish the number of surprises that seem unmanageable. With experience, decision-making evolves from fear to thoughtful trade-offs and prepared responses. Begin by assessing a specific uncertain area, establish a loss limit, and revise estimates as more information becomes available. If developing this kind of decision framework is important to you, subscribe for more practical insights on navigating risk in everyday life.